Guys, my name is JC Hanberry, and I just wanted to give y'all a quick presentation over what my essay is going to be about, my thematic essay. So, I chose to do my essay over a revolution and genocide, and basically look at how revolution, especially in the 20th century, has led to several genocides. And to kind of I want to piggyback off of a quote that I once read, and I actually read it in Robert Nelson's book, Revolution and Genocide, um, and he talked about how revolutions don't always lead to genocide, and genocides are not always the result of revolutions, but if you do look at genocides throughout the 20th century, especially, that was kind of what he focused on, and what I'm focusing on. He did make the argument that it's very common when you look at these genocides that revolution a lot of the time does lead to genocide. And so I kind of wanted to dig deeper into that and delve into that a little bit more. And so that's what I'm going to be doing with my essay. So the first genocide that I'm gonna look at is the Armenian genocide, and I kind of referred a lot back to Norman Naimark's book, and basically Naimark talks about how what really kind of laid the grounds for revolution in the Armenian genocide was the Young Turk movement, and how when the Young Turk movement, when the Young Turks came to seize power in 1908, and then when they became more radical, kind of around 1912, 1913, that's really when, the revolution kind of started to go into full swing. And it was revolutionary in the sense that, their idea, especially once they became more radical, but their ideas were really kind of this extreme, radical ideology of nationalism and kind of promoting a Turkey for the Turks, and doing away with Ottomanism, which was tolerant of other ethnic groups and minorities and religious groups, doing away with that and really establishing a pan-Turkism, pan-Islamism kind of nation. And obviously, with as we saw with the Armenian genocide, the way they went about establishing that pan-Turkic state was pretty extreme and radical and destructive. So that'll be kind of my case study with the Armenian genocide, just focusing on how the Young Turk movement and its radical extreme ideologies really led to revolution, which in turn, eventually led to the Armenian genocide. So the next genocide that I'm going to look at is the Holocaust. And for the Holocaust, a lot of my reference points, and I know it wasn't part of our required reading for this course, but I did choose to look at some outside material in reference to the revolution in Germany and the Holocaust, just because I think it provided really good insight into kind of what I'm looking at. And so I went back to Robert Nelson's Revolution and Genocide for kind of my reference points on this. And basically, Nelson talks about how the revolution in Germany really started with the destruction. Well, it started with several things. One, it started with the destruction of the old regime in Imperial Germany. And secondly, a big thing was the fall of the Weimar Republic, and the collapse of the Weimar Republic. And he really focuses on the fall of the Weimar Republic in the sense that it really, was not a stable, legitimate government. and it really never had the chance to become one. One, because conditions in Germany were really not great after the war, after World War One, but also because once the Weimar Republic was established in 1918, it really created a lot of division within the people in Germany. It created this really strong division between people who were in support of the democracy and people who were not in support of the democracy, and people on the right and people on the left, and it really created this strong polarity of people in Germany and citizens in Germany. And like I said, it didn't help that the government itself was unstable and kind of illegitimate. Um, and then thirdly, with the revolution in Germany, as I mentioned before, was the fact that after World War One, Germany was kind of left in a bad state with war reparations, and their morale, their pride was deeply wounded. They had so many casualties. Their economy, of course, with the depression, the Great Depression, their economy got struck hard, and so really there all of these factors combined really kind of laid a fertile ground for revolution to kind of rise up out of that. And what's interesting about the revolution in Germany and the Nazis and Hitler coming to power, when we typically think of revolution, or at least me, um, we kind of think of this violent overtake or storming into power, seizing power violently or destructively. And that really was not, that's a point that Nelson makes. That really was not the case with the revolution in Germany. He actually refers to it at one point as a legal revolution, because the all of these factors that I just discussed made it made it so possible for revolutionary parties to kind of step in and take place that they didn't really have to violently overthrow the government or overtake the government. They were just kind of able to legally step into that power, and eventually that's what the Nazis and Hitler did. Not to say that you know the Nazis and Hitler didn't ever use or resort to violence, such as the beer hall putsch of 1923, I think it was. But my point being that eventually, when they did come to power in 1933, it wasn't this violent overthrow kind of thing. Like, as Nelson referred to it, it was more of a legal revolution, but a revolution nonetheless. So, my last genocide, I know I'm probably going over the time limit here, but my last genocide that I'm going to cover is going to be the Cambodian genocide. And for that, I referred back to Van Haperen in the Holocaust and other genocides. And with the Cambodian genocide, I really feel like a biggest part of what allowed revolution to lead to genocide and what allowed revolution to even ferment and take place in Cambodia was the fact of the war going on at the time. The Vietnam War, the war in Indochina. Cambodia's, countryside was being bombed, horribly bombed. People were dying. People were having to flee their homes and go to the city. Cambodia was just kind of being devastated by this war. And I think people were just growing tired and weary, and they were fed up with it. And I think Pol Pot really used this to his advantage. You know, he used the U.S. bombings in Cambodia to his advantage because he knew that people were fed up with it. He knew that people were tired of it. And he knew that people were just kind of willing to grab on to any lifeline that was being offered to them. And I think at the time, you know, what Pol Pot was offering, people did see it as a lifeline, and people did see it as a change from, you know, all the destruction that was happening to them with the war going on. And I think those were kind of just the conditions that really allowed Pol Pot to seize that power, and that, you know, allowed that revolution to take place. And you know, also even Robert, you know, Galately, referring back to the specter of genocide, Robert Galately even talks about how um, you know, Pol Pot really kind of had this uncontested power, to where he was, you know, Pol Pot was able to, um, you know, I don't want to say easily take over, but in a sense, he was, um, you know, he was able to just kind of step in and say, okay, this is, you know, this is happening, this is what we're doing, because as I said, it was an uncontested power, you know, that you know, he wasn't really having to fight anybody else for that position. And so I think that's another reason that revolution was kind of able to, you know, maybe take off the way that it did. So, anyways, that is pretty much the gist of what my paper is going to be about, and of this presentation. And those are my sources that I'm referring to. So, I guess what ultimately, you know, just to reiterate my argument, I am gonna look at how, you know, with these three genocides in particular, the Armenian genocide, the Holocaust, and the Cambodian genocide, how in all these three cases, how revolution, kind of what the revolutions were. I'm going to discuss what the revolutions were, what they look like, and how the revolutions in each of these genocides really kind of laid the groundwork for the genocides that were to come out of them, and the genocides that they led up to. So, anyways, thank y'all for watching and for listening, and I look forward to y'all's feedback, and I look forward to watching y'all's presentations and seeing y'all's presentations. And anyway, thanks again, guys, and have a good one. Bye.